Good morning. Welcome to Break Time with Brakeman. I am here today with a friend and colleague, Vinnie Alvarez. Vinnie is the president of the New York City Central Labor Council. And New York, as you know, is an epicenter of the coronavirus. And I invited Vinnie to come in and talk about the devastation that they're seeing in and around New York City, and union members in particularly what they're doing to get through this and keep their members healthy. And also another very important part of Vinnie's job is he sits on the Federal Reserve Board, which puts him very close to how we manage the economic recovery. So I'm going to turn it over to you, Vinnie, and thanks for joining us.
Well, hey, Bev, how are you? It's good to be here this morning. And thank you for doing this, not only to have me on the show, but also what you're doing, bringing people together to kind of talk about the issues that we're all facing in the New York City, greater New York City labor movement. So it's an important time, a lot going on. So I appreciate you having me on today.
Absolutely. So tell us what's going on.
So, you know, as most of your, I'm sure most of your callers and viewers know that, like, the New York City Central Labor Council, just to give you a little bit of background, we represent workers in the 5 boroughs of New York City, workers who work, not necessarily live. Some of them live in New York City and some of them live outside of New York City, from the public sector to private sector and the construction trades. It's about 250 to 300 unions, representing about collectively 1.2 million working New Yorkers from all the different sectors of the public, private, and construction trades unions. And they've been, it's the largest regional federation of the AFL-CIO. So the AFL-CIO is 50 state AFL-CIOs in Puerto Rico, and about 400 or so central labor councils and area labor federations throughout the country. And this region, not only is it the largest region of the AFL-CIO, but as we know, this has been the most severely impacted by the coronavirus and the COVID-19 spread throughout our region. And we've been working closely with our affiliates throughout this crisis from when it first started. Unfortunately, we've seen the deaths of, it's really hard to figure out the exact number. We know of self-reported of over 500 union members that have died working in various occupations, getting illnesses on the job or getting illnesses, and then, you know, going home and getting sick, and far too many of them have died. That number is probably far exceeds that too, because we just haven't heard from all of the deaths, and plus the people who are hurt and people who've recovered also, who are going to have lasting effects, health related effects. So we have, you know, that whole group of workers that we've been working closely with, and then all the first responders and frontline workers who are out there every day, and they're, you know, operating the trains, they're in the healthcare institutions, they're in the grocery and retail stores, public sector workers, education, workers still doing distance learning and things like that, construction trades workers that are a component of the essential workforce. So they're out there too, and we have to, you know, working with those organizations, and they're doing unbelievable work, both providing services that their members need during this time, and also making sure that they take care of their workers who have been laid off or impacted. Mm-hmm. We have had a couple 100,000 workers who've been laid off in New York City. The hospitality industry, hotel and hospitality, has been hit very hard. The entertainment sector hit very hard as well. Those industries are virtually shut down, almost 100%, certainly for the entertainment. But we do have some. There are some hotels, a few of them that are remaining open. A lot of them to house the frontline workers as well.
Right.
So you have that component of it too. It's making sure that we are taking care of the workers, you know, honoring those workers who've died, making the public aware that people have gotten sick and people have actually died and continue to get sick. There's a need for personal protective equipment and necessary supplies on the jobs and things like that, advocating at various levels, at the local level and at the state level, and working with our counterparts at the federal level too. So there's that whole aspect of it.
Yeah.
And then there's also, for the people who are out of work or the people who are suffering economic hardship, because we have the health crisis, and this remains primarily a health crisis. But then there's also working with the different groups and the buckets of workers that are dealing with different economic consequences of loss of work. So a
Right.
lot of them, they've passed, the governor has passed executive orders protecting people where they live, moratoriums against rental, mortgage foreclosure and evictions. Your folks, by the way, we've done through our community outreach program, and Zio Morrow from our office has done some seminars, online trainings with folks from Queens and Brooklyn Legal Services. And I want to thank you and your folks for coming
Yeah,
on
they're
and
terrific.
educating people about their rights and protections during this crisis. So
Right.
we working with Amalgamated Bank, setting up a frontline workers fund to pay for workers who need housing and supplies and things like that. So there's a lot
Now,
of
tell me how you set,
different things that are taking place.
yeah. How did you set up the fund at Amalgamated Bank?
Well, we have a long-standing relationship with Amalgamated Bank, as folks
Right.
know, in the labor movement for many, many years. And with conversations with Keith Meschers, the president of the bank, they wanted to be helpful any way they can. And we had said at the time, several weeks ago, that there's a real need that people have for financial assistance to help them, primarily with housing. That was a huge
Right.
issue for temporary housing for frontline workers, because people were going home and they were living in their garages or living in their cars
Yeah.
because they didn't want to bring
Right.
the illness
Right.
that they were contracting in the hospital that they were working in and other areas. They didn't want to they didn't want to bring that home to their house. So we wanted to make sure that there was a fund set up that could help with that. There are a lot of unions set up a lot of different funds. The FCW, RWDSU have set up help set up funds. There's a lot of different funds that are out there doing similar things, providing supplies for their workers that are needed, because we saw the gap between the supplies that were needed and the supplies that the actual workers were getting as well. And
Yeah. Yeah.
it's really remarkable. I mean, it's heroic that these workers just keep and continue today to keep going to work.
I know.
So
It really is.
So there's that aspect of it. And so we've been doing a lot of work. We're meeting with our delegates meetings, our executive board. You serve on our executive board, Bev, and you know that we're talking weekly as a
Yep.
board about how we all continue to address this crisis. Our delegates meetings we're having interim delegates calls as well, political directors meeting. They're meeting continuously because there's different legislation that is being debated at the city level, at the state level, at the federal level that is going to impact our workers. So there's still a lot going on, and that's a credit to our staff. I mean, I got to tell you, our staff they're second to none. They're working 24/7, and it's the reason why we've been able to shift very smoothly to a remote work environment where they're continuing in a seamless way to be able to provide services for our affiliates and more broadly working people.
Yeah, you have done just an amazing job. The information, like you said, the flow, you really have done a great job, and your staff is terrific and they're so responsive. And I really want to compliment you at such a hard time. But Vinny's like the person I am always depressed after I talk to him, because he also sits on the Federal Reserve Board. So he gets like a real insider view to, like, even when we're sort of walking through the other side of this, the economic, and I don't know, Vinny, if you can talk a little bit about some of that.
Well, there's 12 regional districts, bank districts under the Federal Reserve Bank structure. The second district, which covers all of New York State, 10 counties in New Jersey, Fairfield County in Connecticut, the U.S. Virgin Islands, and Puerto Rico. So they have 9 appointed, some of them they're voted on by, there's 3 sections. There's 9 different board of directors. There's 3 A directors, 3 Class B directors, 3 Class C directors, and 3 of us serve the general public. Myself, we're appointed by the Federal Reserve Board in DC to represent the public. It's a 3-year term, and they're focused on, their main objective at the Federal Reserve is maximum employment and price stability, maintaining inflation, of course. But they're very, very involved in a lot of different ways in this economic crisis, and doing a lot of different things to make sure that our economy is continuing to grow, and prosperity that is being created is a broad-based prosperity as we try to recover from a very, very, very deep, if it's going to be, it's already a deep recession, but it's going to probably in all likelihood be a protracted recession too. So there's a lot of issues that we're discussing on ways that the Federal Reserve can help support can support our district and this local economy, and we try to provide them the best information that we can on what's going on in the different sectors of the labor movement, both in New York and throughout the entire region as well. They've done a terrific job at making sure that they use and make data-dependent decisions and use all the tools that they can to this point in time, and they're constantly monitoring the situation to see what else they can do to continue to support our economy.
Yeah, yeah. So, Vinnie, as we sort of wrap up here, is there anything you want to say that if people need assistance in New York labor movement, how can they reach out to you all? What do you want to leave us with at this point? Maybe any words of hope or wisdom or guidance?
You know, this has been a challenging health crisis, and it's going to remain this way for a long time, Bev. But I would say that the first thing that we could all continue to do is recognize that this is primarily a health crisis, and once we get through this health crisis, we will recover and come out of this crisis together, and in a way that's going to have to help all of us work together to rebuild our economy in a way that's going to grow and expand the middle class. There is the chance that as we come out of this economy, that as often happens after these crises, that inequality tends to grow, as we saw after the recession and other previous times. And this is really a time for us to come together in the labor movement and making sure that we are communicating in a way that requires us to ensure that working people's rights are protected,
Right.
that our incomes do not, that there are jobs, first and foremost, that there are jobs in a growing economy that we can preserve for our members, but also expand and hopefully expand our footprint for our economy and grow as we move forward. We need to make sure, I mean, we're working very closely with at the federal level to make sure that there is a health
Right.
standard in place, which we haven't seen for a long time under the Trump administration. And we need to make sure that we have safe workplaces. We need to make sure that our pensions are protected, that we're investing in infrastructure, and so many other things to ensure that our economy can climb out of what is a very, very, very deep hole right now.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And it
The
happens.
point there, Bev, is that, you know, we have to stay together on this, and we have to continue to work together, as we've done with you and others participating in the Central Labor Council and in other labor federations throughout the country. So it's time for us to continue to actually work more closely together.
Absolutely.
To work at finding solutions to some very difficult problems right now. But if we do that, we can't, you know, we won't just survive, but we'll actually thrive. And that's something we can look forward to.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I keep thinking of that famous quote by Rahm Emanuel: "Never let a good crisis go to waste." Right?
Yeah.
So there's a lot of opportunity in this.
That's right. That's right. And we could see a revival in the manufacturing sector and committing to building the our American economy that we've seen under so much strain for so many decades now, as well as other issues too that I think we can get some traction and some movement on too. But it's going to require us to make sure that we stay together, that we come together, we keep working at it. We have smart, intelligent organizations and people that are willing to do the hard work and build up the organizations that can do that, because this is going to be a lot of years worth of work to recover from this.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, if there's
most important thing as we go through this is to stay safe and stay healthy. That's what we really need to maintain, because this is at its core a health crisis. And as we get through this health crisis, we have to take care of ourselves and our families and our fellow workers, and as we work on these other issues.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, listen, thank you so much, Vinnie. And I will be hopefully seeing you soon somewhere in New York or somewhere.
Well, thanks so much. I appreciate you having me, and thank you for doing this. It's more now. It's more important now than ever that we continue to talk. So I appreciate you doing this.
Absolutely.
Thanks.